And welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid, with myself, Brigid Burke. This is the series that I do in the mornings, basically when I get up and have my coffee, something I started at the beginning of this month. And I talk about different topics related to my life coaching practice, spiritual coaching practice, and other kinds of work that I do or that I have done, also in conjunction with my other channel, Katonia Podcast. Katonia tends to be the more academic arm, I guess, of what it is that I do, and it has to do more with my publications and books and things that I have. And this particular Instagram feed has to do, and also the channel that I have, Liminal Tarot, has to do more with that aspect of things, where I do readings, where I do spiritual coaching, where I do things like that, because not everybody in the Katonia audience necessarily. Some people are more interested in the myth and the psychology and the academic side of that, and not necessarily in this piece. So I keep my actual one-to-one practice kind of thing separate. Things that have to do with my healing practice and things like that. It is connected in with Katonia. Generally, people who PayPal me stuff and everything will see it comes from Katonia.net is actually the organization that is listed, but that's because this is sort of the other, I guess, is more theory and this is more practical. Today also, I just got up today and I have not put any makeup on at all, so I am completely unfiltered here, except for the fact that I brushed my hair when I got up. And I always throw. It looks like I'm wearing the same sweater a lot of days. It's because I just get up. I get chilly in the morning when I get up, and I just say, okay, I'm just gonna throw something on. Some people, sometimes I'll wear a hoodie or something like that, but most of the time I just throw some kind of a jumper or a sweater on, and then I take it off when I go and get into the shower in the morning. So anyway, this is me live and unfiltered. It is a Saturday morning, so I'm not sure how many people are actually going to be on today, because Saturday's a day when people, if they're not at their work, at their day-to-day jobs, it's the day that either they're sleeping in or the days that they are going and doing their errands and so on and so forth. So Saturday, is not necessarily a day of where I necessarily. I think I usually see fewer people on. I mean, there could be people jumping on later, but during the week, I think as people are getting up for work, they'll pop this on and they'll have a listen. So nonetheless, as always, the recording of this is going to be available after I'm finished, and it will also be available here on Instagram, and then also it will be available on YouTube. So let's kind of start here. I'm trying to think again. When I get up in the morning, my routine is usually, obviously I make my bed behind me. I get myself, dressed and organized, reasonably presentable for the camera. And then I will, then I set everything up to make sure everything is working properly. Occasionally I try to remember to stay on the right channel. And then I will do my grounding ritual and ask my guides, okay, what do we want to discuss today? Because I could wake up with any variety of things in my head, and of course this isn't a live stream about me and all my personal stuff. This is more about topics that I think might be resonating with other people right now, or maybe more resonating just more generally. And so the topic that really came to me today is the topic of nothing going wrong. Okay, that was the thing that I wanted to talk about. Because a lot of the time, this is a card that I pulled. I have a deck that I use called The Secret Language of Light. And I do use this one once in a while. It's not a deck I use every day, because it only usually when certain types of questions come up do I actually, or certain types of things that have happened or certain things I've dreamed about, that I think that this deck is what I need to look at. It's not something I look at every day. But that was the card that popped out at me this morning. I felt like that was the deck I needed to look at. And nothing has gone wrong is really a card that has to do with making mistakes. Okay. It's a lot of times, and the meaning of the card itself has to do with when people have suddenly shifted into another reality, so to speak. Now, that's that's understood or interpreted differently by different people. When I talk about shifting into another reality, I mean, it could be a time shift of some kind for some people, but it can also be just if you are moving into a new space, you've ended something, you're taking on some kind of a new identity. There's that gap, that in-between space that you're in between the old state and the new. And as you're going into the new state, there's all kinds of anxiety about whether or not you're going to do it right. You know, you've gone into this space. Are you going to interact with the right people? Are you going to say the right things? Are you going to do the right stuff? And we sometimes get ourselves so mentally tied up in, am I doing the right thing, that we don't make any moves at all. We stand there thinking like, well, you know, I'm waiting for the hand of the universe to pick me up and kind of move me in a particular place. And sometimes the thing that you actually need to do is to just do something. Okay, sometimes that's the answer. Just do something. Now, I realize when things are a factor, like money's a factor, for example. So let's just say somebody has a plan. They want to do something. They want to, produce an event, or they want to, like in my case, like I'm trying to open a school. And good morning. And if you want to do something, you have something that you're planning, something that you want to do, or you want to do something that is big, like a big project, something maybe that requires a lot of funding, or even if you're just venturing into a new business or something. When you move into that state initially, you may be in a situation where you don't have where you feel like you need to move ahead with something, but say maybe you don't have the money yet, or you have a plan, but you're really not sure how any of this is going to pan out. And we do live in a society, as I talked about yesterday a little bit, with the kind of capitalistic way of thinking. Certainly if you take any courses on business, or if you take anything, you know, having to do with finance or planning, if you go to long-term planners, if you think about things with your money and so forth, a lot of times what they're going to say to you is, you know, you have to have a financial plan. You have to be prepared for the future. You have to have all of these things. And again, none of that is bad advice. I mean, it's not. There's a certain component of things where planning and having a foundation laid is certainly part of the equation. But the thing is, we then tend to overplan, and we overplan to the point that we never really, it ends up, the thing that's supposed to prepare us for the future ends up just tying us up in knots right now. So there's a certain amount of, the advocacy that I was getting this morning was a lot of Piscean energy, like being in the moment and allowing your intuition to guide you as to your next move, instead of always worrying about, yes, but what is this going to mean to me, down the road. Sometimes there's decisions that you have to make, or there's decisions or risks that you will take that maybe from a conventional wisdom standpoint, you may say, well, that's foolish. Like, you shouldn't. It's like the fool card. Should I do this? Is this too risky? And the key card, just to kind of recap to where I was before, the card I got this morning was called Nothing Has Gone Wrong. And this was in the Secret Language of Light deck. And the Nothing Has Gone Wrong card indicates that if you are tuning in to what your instincts are telling you, if you're tuning into what your inner guides are telling you, I mean, if you're operating from a space that is connected to that inner voice. People like to call it a lot of different things. It could be your guides, it could be your inner voice, it could be your higher self. I mean, whatever terminology lands. I mean, they all more or less, there may be some slight nuance there, but I think they more or less refer to the same kind of a thing. And the idea is that if you're tuning into that, even if you do something that appears to be a mistake or an accident, or oopsie, I shouldn't have done that, sometimes that mistake is intentional. That you may walk into a situation thinking, oh, okay, this is what I'm gonna, this is the right thing to do, so therefore this is the outcome that's gonna happen. I'm gonna take these steps, and my problem is going to be solved, whatever it is. Or that's going to be the key to whatever I need to do to move forward, or that's going to be the key to making money, or whatever it is. And then something happens and it doesn't work out, or it doesn't go the way that you thought. You put something out there, you have a lot of confidence in it, and then all of a sudden, it's like, and then you stop and you immediately recap and go, did I make a mistake? Did I do the wrong thing? And then we start thinking, the self-doubt immediately creeps in. Oh, maybe I can't trust my intuition. Maybe I'm not doing the right thing. Maybe I need to just focus on doing things the sensible, rational and objective way, and not involve my intuition in this. I mean, people will do that because they feel that parsing things out logically is the safer way to go. And again, it's not that we need to discount logic, or that we need to discount times when it seems like that is the best approach for something. If you are, I've had some situations that I've been working with people where, particularly in this particular area, where there is there's a big plan, there's a big design that they're trying to put together, and their intuition is telling them, this is what you have to do, this is who you have to talk to, this is where you have to go. But other people are telling them, no, that's stupid, don't do that, don't go to this person, you need to do this, you need to take these 5 steps, you need to contact these people. And every time this person listens to the external people, things don't go right. Things were not going right. And really the message there was, don't second guess yourself. I guess that's really what it comes down to. Because even if you do make what appears to be a mistake, that mistake it may not be a mistake. It may be something that brings a certain situation to an end. Now, maybe it's something you feel an attachment to and say, well, I don't really want this to end. Even regardless of, well, it could be something you're satisfied with. Oftentimes it's something maybe that you're not satisfied with. One card that's been coming up a lot for people recently is the 8 of Cups. And this is where we have something that seems like it is something reliable, something steady, something that we have counted on, or something that we feel has had a meaning. But at some point that may stop having a meaning. Or we may feel, okay, I'm doing the same old thing and I'm getting nowhere. This is not the path for me to take anymore, even if it was a perfectly valid path in the past. Now, that doesn't mean that in the past you made a mistake by being on this path. There's the old thing of being things for a reason or a season. We talk about that with friendships or relationships and things, but it can also be with life events. It can be with jobs. It can be with things that are connected to our identity, because our identity is always shifting. You have to remember that your ego identity is always something that's connected with how you are relating to the external world. And if you are, so when you're doing that, I mean, it may shift depending on the circumstances. So if you are in a business, for example, you may want to say, okay, I'm trying to market myself this way, but it's not getting anywhere. And then if you do your research, it might be like, oh, okay, well, this is the thing that people are tuning out, or this is the platform that I really need to go to. I'm not reaching enough people on this one. Like, we may have to make adjustments and things to what's going on externally to get to where we want to go. I mean, maybe we're doing some things right, maybe some things aren't right. But we tend to feel a lot of guilt and beat ourselves up. And really what that goes back to is the component of time again. Now, this is not, I've spoken about timing in the past in terms of when things will be timed. But time is another card that came up for me was Cartouche this morning. I pulled the Ta card, Ptah. And Ta, of course, is the master builder. He's like the creator god of Egyptian mythology. And the Ta card is very, in its inflection, it's Capricorn, it's Saturnian energy. And we did talk about Capricorn energy yesterday. But the fact that we are moving out of the Capricorn era, the fact that Pluto in Capricorn shows us the dark side, so to speak. Or maybe I don't even like the dark side, because I don't like making those dark light distinctions, like dark is bad, light is good. Like, what's been hidden, or maybe what has not been obvious to us, that could be a drawback with the Saturn era is the way in which this capitalistic impulse goes to an extreme, and then it becomes all about people, what they can grab from other people, and if they can step on or control other people along the way. Or you have this situation where 1% of the people have all the wealth and everybody else is still struggling. But yet we kind of, give a pass to the people who have all that money, and put the burden on the people who are still struggling, because the idea is that somehow they've won, they fought their way to the top of the food chain, and so therefore they should be exempt from all of these things. But there's also the saying of, it is a biblical saying, but that's not the only place I've seen it. That's just the first one that comes into my mind. One of my bosses used to say it, because he was a man who was very, very wealthy. He happened to be like a very evangelical Christian, and that was something he and I didn't agree on, but I liked everything about him in every other respect. I mean, he was truly a great man. And he always wanted to do for other people, because he says, well, when you've been given to who he has been given much as expected. So, and money alone doesn't buy happiness. Exactly. It's not right. And that's another good point, because the focus is not just on finances. And a lot of times that is the focus. We tend to think like, okay, how big is my bank account? How big is my 401k? How big is this or that? And ultimately, and it's really ironic, because in the kind of system that we're in, the stock market is very volatile. I mean, it just has to take like one, I remember in the past somebody saying, it's like, the chairman of the board that, why am I not remembering the name of it now, that determines that makes the determinations about interest rates and so forth. He sneezed today and the stock market dropped 20 points. It's just random and weird stuff. But that's where all of our investment is. That's where all of our risk is. Well, I'm going to throw my money into stocks, into things like this, or I'm going to have a fund or something, or we have funds that companies have that invest it for us. And the idea is that, okay, well, what's being invested here is, if you invest in the right things, you'll make a bunch of money or whatever. And that's when we get into insider trading and stuff like that. But it's volatile. It's really interesting that we're very, very focused on that. But it's almost like we have a society that's based on gambling, or the president isn't a good guy, but he's good for the economy. Yeah. And even that second part there might be questionable, but yes, but I know exactly what you're saying there. We see somebody and people, the idea that there's going to be somebody who maybe he's going to fix everything. That goes back to what I was talking about with rescuers yesterday. One person's going to come in and they're just going to make it all better, and that's just never how any of it works. Even if you do have somebody who's a real good guy who gets in at the top, they may try to do things, but there's more moving pieces. I mean, we're not, at least not yet, living in a monarchy. So it's so there's so there's definitely this idea that there's a lot of moving pieces there. And ultimately, you could have a lot and then you could lose it in the next day. I mean, it's happened. I hear about it happening to people. I have people tell me stories about it. And that's a real, talk about living on a roller coaster there. But yeah, if your whole life is based around finance, then that can be a difficulty. So the Saturn energy, the upside of it has to do with in the way it allows us to take our time with something and to build something of quality. And you're saying balance, maybe. Balancing is certainly part of it. But a lot of times, if you think about a situation where you are doing a lot of work, okay, like let's just say you have a real rush of energy, you have an idea, you're starting something new, and you're like, great, I've got this done, I've got this, I've got these people on board, I've got financing, you've got everything going together, and you start, and then you're very excited to roll something out, and it goes really, really slow. There's rather than an onrush of people towards what you're doing, it's like, maybe you get one person here, maybe you get one person there, and then you're just like, it's like it deflates you. You're like, oh my God, I've put all this energy into it, and it seems like nobody pays attention to it, or it seems like I've put all, that gets back to that Seven of Pentacles energy. Like, did I just put all this effort into it for nothing? In the esoteric decks, they call that the failure card. Like, have I failed by doing that? And it's like, no, what it's telling you is that, yes, it's good to lay the groundwork with all that fertile stuff, but it's going to take time. And that's the thing that drives us all crazy, because we need to, in addition to all that other stuff, we have to have patience. But sometimes it's hard to have patience if you're doing something and you need, like, let's just say this is something you've thrown all your energy and your money into, and you're saying, okay, this has to financially succeed in order for me to just pay my bills and eat and do stuff like that. And again, I don't want to say, oh, well, people shouldn't put themselves in that position, because sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to take a risk. It's just, and you have to trust that it's going to come together somehow, and that you're going to be able to figure it out. That's really kind of flying without a net, but it does happen, and some people do feel like that's what they're called to do. But at the same time, this kind of Saturnian energy is the one that says, well, whoa, slow down, make sure you're doing this right. Quality over quantity here. And so you will frequently make mistakes or run into roadblocks, because it's teaching you because we don't often get it right the first time. Some people are fortunate that way. Maybe they are drawing on a lot of past experience, but sometimes even if they are, a lot of times it's who you know, not what your planning is or what's going on intellectually. Because there will be people. I think there was one, I'm trying to remember one fashion designer. I forget who she was, but I remember reading her stories. Very, very famous, and I don't know, was it Vera Wang? It might have been Vera Wang. And I could be wrong about this, but I think I remember reading a story about her where she was like, I don't know, living in a friend's apartment, like she didn't have a whole lot of money, and she was starting to make these clothes, and I think she had made just like 5 pieces or something. And she decided a friend had a booth at some kind of and I'm not sure what kind of convention it was, but it was connected to fashion in some way. And so she kind of came up with the money to pay for like just a little half of that person's booth or whatever, and brought her 5 things. And all of a sudden she had like, they were a hit. Like, she had all of a sudden had all these orders, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so not prepared for this. I need to find out who can produce this and where I can get this. Like, it just happened all of a sudden. But she had been going along for so long, like, living like a lot of people do in Brooklyn, living on ramen noodles and tap water, like living a certain way, but then all of a sudden everything just came together. And the point being that a lot of times things are not planned. That's where timing comes into the play, because when all the right factors come together. And so the question would be, okay, well, what are all the right factors? How do we know that all the right factors are coming together? And the problematic answer is you don't. That's why dealing with this kind of stuff is so difficult. And this is why people, because we all want to know the outcome. We're at the ace, but we want to know where the 10 is. We want to know where this is going to go. We want assurance that it's not going to fail. That's the other thing. And the hard part about life is that we don't have any assurances that things aren't going to fail. And that's a thing that kind of stares us in the face, and we're like, okay, do I do this anyway? That can be timing, patience, quality versus quantity, making the right bets. Yes, yeah, exactly. And it goes back to gambling, doesn't it? Maybe that's why we gravitate towards this economic system. I don't know, because it's a gamble. But yet the thing that we all long for, at least one of the things, I always said we long to not be isolated, and we long to have that security and stability, to feel like we're part of a community, and that we have our abundance, whatever that means for us. Okay, that we have enough, that at least we have enough. Some people want more than enough, but that we at least have enough. Maybe we have an abundance of friends. Maybe we have great family. Maybe we just live in a really wonderful place. I mean, the abundance can take all kinds of forms. It doesn't have to be just like you were saying before. It doesn't have to be financial abundance, but there's this sense of trying to balance, okay, what are my real world obligations, You're saying, so interesting. I was having this conversation with a coworker about how to be successful. Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting. And that's why I bring it up, because it's like it just seems like it's a conversation that a lot of people are having right now, because I think a lot of people are either making changes, they're ready to make changes. And it's like, okay, so how do you negotiate that space where you have to take a risk? I mean, I think that's a lot of times why people will call me for readings too, is because they'll say like, okay, I'm taking this risk. Like, what's the outcome? And I'm not going to lie to you. I do those readings for myself. I'm like, okay, I'm taking this risk. Is this the thing to do? And sometimes you do paralyze yourself a little bit. But I always feel like if you're not on the right path, that it will become evident sooner rather than later sometimes. But you will either something in your gut will tell you that it's wrong and you will change course, or you will push ahead with something, go into it, and then realize, at some point that, maybe this wasn't the right way to go. But again, we always lament time. We feel like we're running out of time a lot of the times. And the older you get, the more that is. When you're younger, you feel like everything takes forever. You're like, you want something, and then it's just like, and it just seems like it's ages before you get to where you want to be. But as you get older, probably because we're all hurtling towards midlife, towards end of life, as we hurtle in that direction, I think we have, time tends to go faster. And you will hear that a lot of people's perception of time is that time is moving really, really fast as they get older. I can say that that's true. I'm looking at this and I'm like, what? It's June in 2 weeks? Like, where's 2024 going? It's just kind of like running really, really fast. And when you have things that you want to achieve, let's just say you have deadlines for yourself, you have things you want to do, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I want to do this by December, and this is where I'm at by May, and I wanted to be farther along, or I wanted to be, time is one of those things. Of course, we know ultimately time is kind of an illusion, but nonetheless, that is the space in which we operate and in which we interpret what's going on around us. And it's very, very hard when the message often is stay in the present. Just worry about how you're going to get through today. Because oftentimes that sounds like trauma coping. It sounds like this idea of, okay, one day at a time, but it may also be about getting up every day and looking at what the possibilities are rather than looking at what all your limitations are. And you may not be able to act on everything right away, but sometimes action doesn't always have to be huge. You could, if you something you want to do, you could start researching things. I want to start a school, so it's like, okay, so now I need to start thinking about the pieces, writing an outline, researching what I could do for grants, researching what kind of curricula I want to put together. I start thinking about these kinds of things. And even if I'm only doing a little bit a day, I'm still moving towards where I want to go. And at some point, we may have like a massive flash of inspiration, or we may have a chance meeting with somebody, or something may happen that all of a sudden everything clicks into place and things go together if that's the right thing for you to be doing. And so this is why I feel like rather than always just focusing on the planning aspects of things, which you can't get away from at least some of that, you also need to say, well, take into account this kind of unexpected factor. And good morning. So this kind of factor of what's unexpected, of what comes in flashes of intuition, what comes in through serendipity, what comes in through synchronicity, what comes in through chance conversations with people. One of the things that my guru always had said was, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. I mean, this is because you're part of a larger system. You're part of a larger system. And I think I was watching, there's one reader who I watch on YouTube, and she is a lore of assumption person. She's very much into the lore of assumption, which is the idea that if you don't like a version of your life or of a person, that you just need to change it. You just need to shift timelines and create a new story, create a new version of that person. And she'll say, like, no, this is not about, like, spiritual bypassing. It's not about spiritual shaming for making mistakes. It's about the way that you can take control. And my only problem with that way of thinking is that it gives us the impression that we are the complete master of our destiny. And I think, and that's what a lot of people want to do. That's the motivational thing, like you can take charge of everything. And yeah, there are certain things you can take charge of. You probably can do more with your life than you think. But the other component of it is that there's what you can control and what you can't control. I think I talked about that dream that I had a while ago. This, I think, was in relation to a slightly different topic, but I saw two clocks. I saw the clock that it was, this is what I can control, and this is what you can't control. And so it was running time. It was these two clocks that I saw. And this had to do with somebody who I felt was approaching end of life, but really wanted to take control of that whole process and decide when it was going to happen and how it was going to happen and how everything was going to happen afterwards, when they were gone and all this kind of stuff. And there was literally this element in the dream of this is what you can control and this is what you cannot control. And so that is the component where we need to focus on surrender rather than on trying to take control, trying to manifest. Because what will manifest will manifest because we are letting go and allowing ourselves to be carried. You know, if you want to use the ocean metaphor, if you are a wave, a wave can hit the shore and have some certain kind of an impact, but it's part of an ocean. And, is it better to try to focus on your own, is it better to worry about making your own little effort as a wave, or is it better for you to move with the entire system because now you have more power? It's that's what she says. If only it were that easy. Spirit has their own plan. Well, exactly, and that's exactly what we were going to, because earlier what I was talking about was Saturn energy and the way in which we are. We face certain limitations, or we make certain mistakes, and then we beat ourselves up and go, "Oh, I made this mistake. I shouldn't have done this thing." And it's like, no, you get moved in different directions. Sometimes you have to make a mistake to show you that wasn't what was for you. But rather than beat yourself up over it, sometimes it's just the thing that lets you let go of the thing that you're not supposed to be doing, or not the right thing for you, and move you on to the correct path. And that's the thing. That's why there has to be. Well, okay, I guess maybe there doesn't have to be. But there has. But this is why it's better to surrender to a certain degree. This is why a lot of my work is about telling people, develop your intuition, learn to listen to your inner voice. Don't let all kinds of people tell you, no, you're doing it wrong. You have to have this plan, and you have to take these 3 steps, and that's the only thing that's going to make you successful, and that's the way you have to go. And I find that this is a lot of what I'm seeing is people who try to do that and say, well, I have to follow the traditional cookie cutter route. And again, to be fair, for some people, maybe that is the route that they need to go. Maybe that's what their intuition is telling them. But ultimately, you need to listen to that inner voice, because that's what's going to steer you right. But it isn't necessarily going to tell you the outcome either. And the outcome is often not what you expect. And that's the thing. That's the hardest part of dealing with transition, is that you are in a space where you have to, where you want to make a plan, you want to know, you want to have stability, you want to see where things are going to go. But there has to be a certain amount of trust in the bigger system. And, and I don't know, maybe because I grew up in a family where the tenor was not having trust in the bigger system, that this is sort of a big thing for me personally to try to work with. It's like, okay, I feel like that's a big lesson. Of course, I also have Uranus and Taurus right now, so it's like, you think you're secure. Everything's going to get turned upside down. And you can learn to live in that system, and it actually may be better in a lot of ways. There is something nice about being grounded, earthy, and that's certainly a component of things, taking our ideas and grounding them in reality, as I talked about yesterday. But today, but sometimes, that's that Piscean energy. Like everything is amorphous. It's kind of crazy. And how do you navigate your way through it? And sometimes you just have to yield to what's going on. So let's look at our reading for today. Our first card is the Tower. It's the Thunderbolt card. Okay. So, all right. So yeah, this is about foundations being shaken. And it's interesting because like I said, the first card I drew from the light language deck was, nothing has gone wrong. right? So sometimes, yeah, so this is the idea of the thunderbolt that comes in to illuminate something so that you can see, when lightning flash hits in a storm, I mean, now everything's lit up, right? You can see what you weren't seeing before. And it's typically, it's a type of a breakthrough. It's a process that you have to at least meet halfway in order to see like what the shaking of this foundation. If the foundation's being shaken, then you have to worry about whether or not the house is steady or not, right? And if the house has fallen down, do you try to rebuild the house, or do you walk away from that house and build a new one, all right? The inner feeling of which you're unaware is clinging to the past, 5 of Cups, okay? So, yeah, again, this idea of causality. Causality is the way that we live life. Causality is how we determine truth. It happened this way before, so therefore there's a pattern, and it's going to happen this way again. And, I mean, yeah, there are patterns in things. I think there can be messages in patterns, and sometimes our past experience does tell us something, but not necessarily. And I think this is a case often where there's something from the past, whether it's something emotional, whether it's something connected to a belief that we have about something that is holding us back. And so this would indicate this need to, to show this person, their head is just completely tied up in this thing, and they're saying, take this box, tie a bow around it, stick it to the curb, and walk away from it. This is whatever it was, or even how great it might have been at some time, whatever belief you're clinging on to, or however you felt this might have been a rock in a storm for you, it's time to kind of move forward from that. Because the external feeling of which you are aware is the Ace of Pentacles, which is the maturity card. Okay, so, also I think of Saturn with maturity as well, but there's the idea that you're in a new space and you have learned something. Like you're operating from a space where you don't need this past thing anymore. It's just something that's hard to let go of. And it's not, and again, my feeling is, it's very easy for me to sit here with the cards and say, oh, well, you need to let go of something. And it's like, I get that in the cards all the time. And I'm like, yeah, sure, easier said than done. Because when it's something that's sort of an ingrained pattern in us, or something that is maybe ancestral, or this is way we've always learned to do it. If we don't know a new way to do it, we immediately turn around and say, well, this is what I did before. And what you did before just may not be going to work, or it may be a situation. It may, even though you may think it may be helping you, maybe it's something that's weighing you down. So, yeah, so you've got the turning in card. This is the 4 of Cups. And I always like this version of it because you see all these kinds of voices. This is literally what I was talking about at the beginning. Learning to listen to your own voice and not these other phantom voices here. Jang, I keep grappling with other people's crazy. It is not mine to own, but it's so hard to let it go. Yeah, right. Well, exactly, because that's another aspect of being part of the system, is that you're trying to discern your own stuff from other people's stuff, and trying to set up the appropriate boundaries when when you feel like that's being pulled in. So, and the word meditation came into my mind this morning. Like, meditation is important. Meditation is important. And again, that's an easy thing to say, but a lot of times we have to quiet all those external voices in order to hear our own. And sometimes, though, we internalize some of those external voices. But usually it's because they're a reflection of an inner voice of our own. If somebody says something to you and it strikes you in some way, it's because it somehow connects with something that may be going on that maybe you're not focused on. Maybe something that's subconscious, maybe a belief that you have, or an attitude you have about yourself or about something, especially if it's a criticism, because our inner critics are really, really hard to silence, let me tell you. Okay, the ultimate outcome here is the Queen of Pentacles card, which is flowering. Okay, so this is about, there may be a shakeup with some things. I feel like the shakeups that are going on have to do with, they're pointing out stuff that we need to let go of, things that we need to get rid of. And again, we're doing this sort of generally on a live stream, so this could be a lot of different things for different people. But there's something from the past here that may be holding us back. Now, there's been a lot of shift of like nodal energy, North Node energy, and in Western astrology, at least, the North Node is connected with where we're headed, whereas the South Node has to do with where we've been. Okay, and typically the way that works is the south node is what is familiar to us, but also what might be karmic, what might represent our debts, our lessons, things that we are meant to move past in this lifetime. Okay, so we're moving into that north nodal space, and so I think this is saying there's you're ready to flower. Okay, you've got these two pentacle cards. Okay, you've got the ace and you've got the queen. So there's this idea that you are ready to move into this space, and probably what's holding you back is, again, all of these voices, which, whether they be people around you reflecting inner voices, it could be the voices of family, it could be the voices of well-meaning friends, it could be the voices of just things you see in the media, but that's not your voice. Your voice is the one that is literally what's come up for me a lot this week, even with clients. It's just your inner voice is the one that you need to listen to. And but of course, the first step for a lot of people is, how do I discern that inner voice? Probably people who watch this channel already have a pretty good idea of how to do that, but many people who watch this might not have any idea as to how to go about that. So the first step really needs to be, again, meditation. And I don't always recommend when people meditate that they just sit down and try not to think about anything. That's the way a lot of people are told to start. I'm like, no, that is setting yourself up to fail, because there's no way you can sit there and think about nothing. I mean, that's just, your mind is running all the time. The key is to be able to sit there and not try to think about anything, just let your mind do its thing, like you're watching a movie. That's what I always tell people the good first step is, like, just watch all the stuff that goes through your mind. Don't try to focus on anything initially. And eventually, and also, there's meditations that people can look at online. We have a monkey brain. Yeah, exactly. It's all over the place all the time. And because we overprivilege the mind and we think, oh, the mind is so much better. That's what makes us the culmination of creation. That makes us better than the rest of nature. And it's like, no, actually, your mind can be a huge obstacle to you actually succeeding at things, because we get distracted, and we can't focus, and then we overthink, and we overanalyze, and that's where we get ourselves into trouble, because we don't balance it with what our inner voice is telling us. Rationality is an important tool, but as I always say, it's a tool in the toolbox. It's not the only tool that you have. And there's a need to connect with that energy, with that, to connect with what your inner voice is saying. So again, if that's not something that's easy, it's like the first step has to be, okay, how do you quiet that? And the way that I was taught was to take a distance from it. Okay, you got to take a distance from it first. Look at it as though it's happening to somebody else. Whatever your thoughts are, or just watch them as though they're just kind of scrolling past you. And you realize a lot of times, a lot of what you're thinking about is not much of anything at all. It's just that, but that's just what the mind does. It just goes and goes and goes. So that would be the first step before you're able to sort of quiet yourself enough to listen to that inner voice. The meditations that I have used, that I find is the best for people who have a really hard time, is called Integrated Amrita Meditation, which is done by Mata Amritananda Mai. They actually offer, you could actually get Zoom classes in this meditation for free. And they do it from, usually I think it's the California ashram that will do it. But that meditation, they have what they call a 20-minute, they have a 20-minute and a 35-minute, and the 35-minute one is more for people who are like devotees of the guru. You don't have to be. I mean, you can do that one without being a devotee of the guru, although oftentimes they will evoke the guru and, say, help us and your blessing. So if people are not keen on that, then that wouldn't necessarily be for them. But there's people who will do that, and during that moment will, I don't know, if they're Christian, they'll think of Jesus or whatever. They'll tell you don't have to necessarily think of Allah, but then there's a 20-minute version, which I've taken that class, and I don't know, I do like the 35-minute version better, because I feel like there's just some more things in it that I think are easier for people to connect to when they're trying to balance that energy. But I can tell you, after that meditation's over, you are like it's a really, really good one. So if people want to know about that, I can post the information for the ashram's integrated Amrita meditation. I would love to teach it to people, but you have to be the guru has to give you permission to do it, and nowadays that permission is too hard to get because she doesn't come around where you can really ask her anymore. So yes, Jane, yes, please. Okay, yeah, I will post a link to that. If I don't post it on this live stream link, I will just post another one on my page. So just look out for that. Like if you don't see it come up in your feed, go to transition.life.coaching and I'll have the link mentioned for the integrated Amrita meditation. So because I just find it to be extraordinarily helpful. And of course, I'm bad and I don't always do it, but well, I'm not bad. I just, there's days when I don't do it. But it is a really, I just find that that out of everything I've ever practiced, that's been the absolutely most beneficial thing. And again, people don't have to be a devotee of my guru to use that meditation, but they want you to learn it from an authorized person because they don't want you to learn it wrong. It does deal with, to a certain degree, with your Kundalini energy and stuff, so you want to make sure they teach you how to do it right. And when you're doing it in under the circumstances, then that way, they don't want just random people going out and teaching it and missing steps and stuff, and they don't messing with anybody's energy. So it's really, really a really good meditation. So we're at 7:16. So I should probably, I probably should make these 45 minutes instead of a half an hour because it just sort of ends up that way. But thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. I will be live tomorrow morning again at 6:30. As always, this will be available on Instagram to see the whole feed if you didn't see it, and I'm also going to upload this to YouTube today. So, you're welcome. I'm so glad that you could join me today. And yes, you're welcome to you as well. And I just had somebody join. I'm literally just signing off, so apologies. But the recording of this will be available if you would like to check it out. So thank you guys so much, and have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow.